You're listening to a Time Machine podcast. Old Movie Time Machine. An adventure through time and or space. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Old Movie Time Machine. Jay-Z here with Shrishma Naik.
Woo!
Katherine Sherlock.
Hello.
And my sister and yours, Carolyn Naoroz. Hey, sis.
Hey there.
Welcome back to the program, you guys. It is a special, surprise bonus episode of Hitchcocktober. We called an audible last week. It wasn't planned, but now it's part of the plans. It's been woven into the tapestry of Hitchcocktober. Week 4. I mean, I'm feeling the season. I'm sure you are, right?
Happy Halloween.
Right. It's around the corner, you guys. And to get you all queued up, we are talking about 1960s Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. But let's start off with some one-line reviews real quick, and then we'll get into the whole story behind the story, because at least one of us has never seen Psycho before. We're going to talk about it in a minute. So, one-line reviews, though. Shrishma Naik, do you got a one-line review for Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho?
I actually don't.
Do you want a minute?
Yes.
Okay. Carolyn Naoroz, do you have a one-line review for 1960s Psycho?
Yeah, I'm going to wing this one, though.
Is everybody right,
I'm sorry.
Great.
Well,
That's
anyway, my one-line review, kind of slow, kind of sexy, kind of not scary movie.
Wow, interesting. Okay. Great one-line review in that it was one line, and also extra great because it ends with a question mark. Shrishma's nodding her head. You got one? You all queued up? You ready?
Okay.
Hit us.
I would say that of all the movies we've watched so far, these two guys in the movie were the hottest ones I've seen so far.
Ding dong.
Drilling down immediately into the core issues of this program. How hot are these people?
Right.
That should be, if we were doing the intro still, which we're not doing anymore, but if we were, I would add the hotness level maybe to like, how hot are these people? Like, would I get down with
these guys were hot.
Okay. All right. Shrishma
Much better than, old Jimmy Stewart we've been
here
looking at.
Yeah.
for the
Different
last
vibes. Much different vibes with the shirtless man at the hotel. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the hammer, Katherine Sherlock. Do you have a one-line review for us for 1960s Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho?
I guess it's more of a comment, but yes.
Sure. Right,
I mean, like, seriously, if you don't want the business, don't turn the light on.
That's true.
Good one.
Wow. Yeah, sure. That is worthy of it.
That's a good one.
Oh, Norman, the world's worst proprietor. He just can't. He's not very good at it.
I must say, I think I have watched this movie before.
Really? Okay. Can I cue it up real quick?
Go.
So, Shrishma Naik is the one in question who had never seen this before. We talked about it. You heard it live on the air last week. Had never seen this. I could not. I go to movie jail for committing movie crimes, such as revealing the exciting conclusion to Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, which is like rule number 1 of like all movies is like, don't tell people how Psycho ends. So that being said, I did have to check in this morning to make sure it did lock in the ending, because it really is the very end when things all kind of come together, question mark,
Fall apart.
So I just got to know, and Carolyn, had you seen this before or no? I can't remember.
No.
You've never seen? Oh, wow. Okay. And Katherine,
remember you asked me, and I told you, I was like, I don't know, just never interested me.
Okay, and according to your one-line review, still maybe not that interested.
Definitely not.
I guess we'll get into. But should we just start with the big reveal?
Right.
Was this surprising for you, Shrishma Naik?
No. Because I realized that I have watched this movie before. I'm 100% sure there's a Bollywood remake of it.
It's gotta be. Right? Yeah, why not?
In which, of course, it was his mother. Spoilers.
Actual mother.
Yeah, like actual mother.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm convinced, and this must have been like quite young because I can't fully recall the memory, but I remember being terrified of this movie.
Okay.
And I can't tell you where in the
Bollywood version.
No, this American
one. Okay.
version.
But you don't remember where or when you saw it?
I don't remember, but there's some scenes that are so like I've seen this before, like
yeah.
And I remember like, oh shit, like I was scared, like I remember that feeling.
Yes.
But then I also knew it was the mother. So
okay. And when did you start? When did you figure out like, oh, this is the one where the mom is?
It's like when she went to the motel, like the whole like her pulling up to the motel, looking up at the house. So I'm not sure, like, you know, memory is weird, right? I don't know if it's like all blending together, like the different versions that I've seen. But there's definitely a fear. There was a fear. And now I'm like, oh, okay. It's just
another one of these old movies. Right, yeah. The white people, 1960. Okay. And Carolyn, what are your thoughts regarding the exciting conclusion to Psycho? Please do not reveal it to those who do not know. But we're going to talk about it at length here.
Wait, whether I was surprised about it?
Yeah, I mean, does it? Like,
no, I mean, I knew when I might not have ever seen it, but I know, and I knew what the ending was. So no, I was not surprised.
Okay. And Catherine, with this refresher, how are you feeling about it now?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I knew the double personality kind of business, but like there were some twists and turns in the whole thing with the psychologist at the end. I hadn't remembered that. Yeah, so gold strikes again.
That guy, boy,
gets to enjoy it as if I've never seen it.
Talk about somebody get that guy a bagel because he is chewing the scenery. The psychiatrist at the end, like this guy, he is making a fucking meal of that scene. Which I mean,
all the men did in this movie.
They really did. So these are meaty man roles, you know, but also for the women as well.
Yes, she was good. She was. I think she was. Her driving scene, her eyes, everything was very captivating.
Now you know who her daughter is, right?
No, I know you're going to tell me.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Oh,
that's right. So Janet Leigh, star of Psycho, Jamie Lee Curtis, star of Halloween, the mom-daughter ultimate horror combo. Okay, so let's do part one of the movie real quick, and we'll talk about it. Okay. Marion Crane wants to marry her dirt poor boyfriend, but he just can't get his shit together. Fortunately, she works at a real estate office and has access to tens of thousands of dollars, which she promptly steals. Now on the run, she heads to LA, switches cars, and is pretty paranoid about the results of her adventure. Fatigued from all the imaginary conversations in her head, she stops at the Bates Motel during her drive and meets the proprietor, Norman. Norman's an awkward guy who is really into his mom, taxidermy, and peeping. Marion excuses herself to shower in her room and is stabbed to death by Norman's mommy, Mrs. Bates. So this whole first part of the film, which is about 50 minutes for an hour and 48-minute movie, like it's a different movie than what
that's true.
The movie winds up actually being about. Yeah. But to start off with, I mean, like you say, we're opening up with some hotties, right? Having a dangerous liaison in a seedy hotel in Phoenix, Arizona.
That was steamy.
I mean, literally.
What an opening.
Right? I mean, like, they both look really hot. I mean, it's Phoenix. So, I mean.
I'm guessing that for the time that this was incredibly racy.
Shocking.
Yes.
That man does not have his shirt on and she's in a bra. Yeah, I mean.
I think I did some light web interweb research.
Okay.
This movie came out after there was a change in one of the censorship laws or something.
Oh, the Hays Code. Okay.
So something. So I guess it came out after. So there was some leniency. This was one of the first movies that showed a woman in a bra. On screen like this.
Okay, I had no idea about that. Yeah. I do know the toilet trivia.
Yes, and then it was the first time they'd shown a toilet Like the
actual
like the
flushing. Yeah,
and
right.
then like the
okay, good.
You know,
that's interesting.
just human bodily functions. Cool.
Yeah,
We're now,
reality.
Right. It only took millennia to get to a point where we feel comfortable showing.
Yeah, up until this point, nobody took a shit. Like
ever.
In Hollywood.
I must say, like anytime,
maybe it was kind of sewn up around the back there. It just didn't.
Yeah. Back then, of course.
I was gonna say, like, anytime they show a picture of a toilet bowl in any movie or show, I'll close my eyes.
It's just too real. You know what's happened there, and you don't like it.
I don't want to see anything. Just next scene, please.
Well, that not to jump ahead too far, but when Marion's sister finds that number, that scrap of number, I mean, is that not the grossest clue that anybody's ever found?
Actually,
ever?
I saw that one coming. I was like, paper? She didn't look if everything flushed or not. So there's definitely a piece of paper floaty.
What about Norman, though? He did a thorough cleanup job.
Yeah.
But he didn't lift up the seat.
No, he did a terrible. He mops for like 5 minutes. And he's like, I should do it.
Yeah.
Like that.
I mean, I was going to ask your opinion, Caroline, because I mean, this is clearly got to be like the worst like crime scene clear up ever.
Oh my God.
They might just get this mop and a towel. Well, this is all fine. Everything's squeaky clean now. What? 5 minutes later?
Well, yeah.
It takes me longer to clean my bathroom.
That grout is covered in DNA. All kinds of DNA. I mean,
first of all, I was watching and I'm like, there's just not enough blood for a stabbing scene, like at all. I'm like, yeah. David's like, well, it depends on how much of her body was inside or outside of the bathtub. And I was like, true, because we were only seeing the water go down the drain. If she had a lot of stabs in her chest and upper abdomen and her upper half was like out of the bathtub,
well, leave it to old David Time Machine to drill down to the core issues of this type of scene.
But we were like, hey, don't put a black light in that bathroom.
No, never.
No.
I mean, did they have the technology in the 60s? Black light?
No, nothing like that. But they would have figured out. I mean, like, he's not.
No, he's not.
But let's get back to the key issue of Act 1, which is the hotness, you guys. I mean, Janet Leigh, smoking hot. She is down to do it with Sam, her boyfriend, who, like, we hear right away, he's got to pay off, alimony, and he's got to pay off his dead father's debts, and like, he just can't get ahead. He's living in the back of a hardware store. I mean, what do we do for Sam here? Like, and also, does it really fucking matter? Because again, this is a different movie than what we end up watching. So,
I mean, like, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I guess they were both in love and there was obviously something holding him back from being with her. And she even said, like, I'll do whatever you want me to. Like, I forget what it was that she said in the...
Oh, she'll lick the stamps.
She'll lick the stamps. There we go.
Oh my God.
I'll lick the stamps.
So many good drops in this movie.
Yeah.
So it is a drop.
So what's stealing $40,000, I guess?
Right, which if we do the time math on that, that's $414,000. So that's a fair chunk of money.
Yeah. And clearly the man who was drunk was just throwing it around. And
so we follow Marion to her office where she meets this client of her boss who is this rich drunk man.
I am dying of thirsteroni.
Can't remember his name, but he is wildly unappealing, and he is just also a drop bomb. Like, everything that comes out of his mouth is a drop, basically. I'm just like, how's that talking about? Oh, and I don't claim taxes either.
Hot as fresh milk.
And he comes in. He is classic boorish man.
My sweet little girl
in the world, buying and selling people as he sees fit, and this is what he's doing here. And boy, you kind of like root for her to take that man's money. He's just off the rails, but also not to a point where we haven't seen in modern times. Like, he's behaving as
any man would.
Yeah, I mean, any thoughts about the theft of the monies?
It was so easy.
Yeah, well, I mean, if he's gonna just take it out of his pocket and like wave it in her face, like, that's what I do with money.
But like, even the boss was like, there was just this blind trust that she would go and put it in the bank.
Yes, and that is the right move for that boss of just like, we can't do this. Like, this is we're shutting this down immediately. But she's sick and tired of it. She wants to be married, you guys. But yeah, so she takes this money. She is really good at creating the excuse for like, oh, I got a headache. And also I don't want to be here. You're a disgusting client of my boss. I don't want to be around you. I got to go. He of course is like flirting with her the whole time. And you know that she has been through this routine many times because she is so good pretending like it doesn't bother her. And yeah, so she takes this cash and she goes home and she packs her bags and she's on the run all of a sudden. She is leaving to go set up a new life somewhere. That being said, she is not so good at the sneaking around bit. She's clocked immediately by her boss, who sees her like leaving town, which again, like having seen the movie and knowing where it goes and knowing that all of this is the MacGuffin, if you will, the money is the MacGuffin, right?
Right.
All of this means nothing big picture, but also
it actually gets thrown away.
Well, right, exactly, right? It gets rolled into a fucking swamp. But when her boss sees her and she sees the boss see her, I felt that pain in my gut of like, oh my God, that boss is going to be so mad at me. And just like that, he plays up that dynamic perfectly. Because we've all felt that way. We all answer to somebody. And I mean, even her boss answers to the rich drunk man who's giving all the money. But yeah, I felt that core panic of getting busted on, doing a fakey sick day, right?
Right.
So it's tough. But she starts driving and she descends into this sort of ongoing imaginary conversation in her head. It's an interesting device, I guess. Like, it's not one that I've seen necessarily played out to this extent where it's just like minutes of us focusing on her thinking basically. And then we're getting all of the audio work over it, but we're just looking at her face while she drives the whole time, while she's kind of going through the hell of the potential end game here, or what the results of her actions. I
suppose I don't understand why she even thought she would get away with it. And she's obviously paranoid from like the moment she doesn't go to the bank.
Yeah, there's no chill in her ass at all. Like once she's on the run, she's acting like the most suspicious person you've ever seen.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I'm like, would you like to draw more attention to yourself? Let me tell you how. Because you're doing it all.
Yes. Now, so there's the famous scene with the highway patrolman, right? So this is one of those movies I was, as I'm watching it through our new eyes of doing this program, everything in this movie is kind of iconic in a way. Like if you've seen it before, this is a very influential film. It's a shocking film, or was a shocking film for the time. Just kind of outrageous, but like everything that happens in it, from like the $40,000 to the shot of her just behind the wheel driving the car, to the dead on waking up to see the trooper's face, like just staring directly, just spiking the camera, basically just staring at the audience. Like, these are all very iconic images. The motel, the house, the showers. I mean, like all of it, like the fruit cellar, it's all, everything's just wall to wall influence coming from this movie. But we meet this highway patrolman who's like, you can't, ma'am, you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be sleeping on the side of the highway like this. Yeah. What's up? What are you doing? And she's just like, I have to go. Like, she doesn't even, for somebody who's so calm and collected in the office when she's actually taking the money, as soon as anybody, like the heat is on the slightest, but the heat's not even on. It's just like,
he's just asking her.
Somebody delivered the oven to the house. They haven't even plugged it in yet. Just the arrival of an oven in a box is enough for her to be like, I got to go sell my car. Bye. I can't see. The cop obviously picks up on it, follows her because she is behaving suspiciously. I don't know the ins and outs of the legality of, we saw this in Dragnet back in the day.
He can follow her. Well, I guess he can.
If she's in his jurisdiction, right? Like, but he's just tailing her just to be like, what is this crazy lady up to? And she doesn't even try to shake him. And she immediately goes to sell the car. I don't know what good that does at that point. If the police are just
I didn't really understand the point of that, because she's clearly been clocked, and an officer of the law can make that connection. So
right.
Yeah. So it's an imperfect crime that's playing out in front of us. Also, it does go to show. So we kind of we think of this as a different age, a different era or whatever, but it's not so dissimilar to where we can't conceive of like the fact that she's going to get caught. Has been brought up. What's the plan here, Marion? You're going to take the money, I guess cash, that helps, but otherwise like you got to like change your identity and everything and move to a different part of the country, if not a different country entirely. With your
Wouldn't it have been a bit easier to disappear back then, though?
Probably, right? I mean, this is what I like to
hitch up somewhere and just call yourself something else. And
yeah, I mean, driver's license didn't have photos.
Well, but several reasons why. Yeah, okay, driver's license wouldn't have had photos. Your like law enforcement was even more siloed in its jurisdictions than today. You don't have trackers because you don't have a cell phone. You're not posting where you are every moment. So yeah, if you just change your name,
I mean, they have
and you stick with it.
We got fingerprint technology at this point, but it's great.
I don't even think we have Miranda rights at this point, by the way. 1960?
Do we get them? I feel like wasn't that like 59 or something like that? I could be wrong about that. I find out.
I'm blanking on the year. This is horrible. No, it's 1966.
Oh wow. Okay.
1966 was the Supreme Court's decision for Miranda v. Arizona.
So no song and dance from.
I'm like, I know it's the 60s. I just was pretty sure it was later.
Okay.
So you do not have your rights read to you?
No.
So like you might not know your rights.
It just things go off the rails immediately. Not unlike Dial M for Murder, actually, but I mean, she's on somebody's radar before she even leaves the town. Her boss sees her. Marion, oh God, there's got to be a better.
Why wouldn't you
get a fake mustache or like take the back road or whatever? She goes right through town. She like drives past the office.
Yeah, I mean,
like she's getting a sick thrill revisiting the scene.
I will say that's kind of like the only moment that I actually really liked is that she like is so dumb in making that decision. First of all, like not sneaky at all, but she's just like, oh, hey. And he's like, hey. And he's like, wait, like that silent interchange and facial expressions. I'm like, oh, you're fucked now, girlfriend.
Oh, exactly. Right. It's a nightmare for all of us. That touches a nerve within all of us. It's like, oh my God, my boss is going to sing it. Yeah, so she sells her car, like she high pressures the salesman. The first time the salesman's been high pressured by the customer. Wow. That guy, by the way. I mean, like even that man is iconic. That performance of like, I don't want any trouble. All these like fake outs and everything of his weird way of speaking, his weird sales patter. She does change the car out. The policeman gives up. He's like, well, that's crazy. and then she drives until it's nighttime. And
I mean, how does she get lost? Is like if she's driving on a straight road.
I mean, figure the desert, right? So
did she like accidentally get off on the wrong slip road or something?
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess the highways weren't as sophisticated.
Right. I mean, there's not going to be like lighting infrastructure, so it'll be dark.
This also sounded like the era where things were moving from, like they said, the old highway. So from like the Route 66 to like the interstate.
Right. Yeah. Eisenhower's highway, the mighty Eisenhower highway.
That makes sense.
With that was apparently what's the rumor that it was designed to have enough long stretches that you could land military planes if you needed to anywhere in the U.S. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's a rumor I've heard, unsubstantiated. But it takes us 27 minutes of this movie to get to the Bates Motel. Mm-hmm. So she arrives almost a half hour in. Again, the movie is totally different. Right. And then we end up at this fucking motel and we meet weirdo Norman. Shrishma, how do you feel about Norman? How does he make you feel when you meet him? Tell me your experience, your journey.
I mean, I would have smashed.
Would you?
You'd be dead then.
Look, I will say, he had...
Maybe not worth losing my life over.
He had a good outfit.
But he is pretty, right? Isn't he?
I found him nice.
Okay.
Innocent, pretty, fresh face.
So this is one of the two guys that you thought was the hottie? Okay. That's so funny because you said that. I didn't even think of obviously I thought, okay, well, Sam, right?
Who was the other one you thought?
I didn't know. I just figured thinking back to the other men, it's like Martin Balsam, her reedy mustachioed boss, and the highway patrolman. It's like
it's the psycho
sweaty sheriff. But yeah, okay, I guess Anthony Perkins. I mean, he would be the next Mr. Handsome. He had a good outfit. He was wearing some corduroy, like black sweater, like looks
he
good.
Had he had a like Catherine said, like a nice face. Like, I mean, I wouldn't upon first meeting this man, I wouldn't think like, oh, he's crazy. Like, he was welcoming, like he helped her. He was.
Catherine, if you met Norman out and about, would you take him home with you?
Well, that's not really the way I operate. But, so no. Also, he's kind of like.
Curious.
I'm old enough to be his mother, so also no. And that has all kinds of weird connotations. Then, does it not?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, like, I think if anybody's landing Norman, I think like that profile. All right, but you think before you his mouth and starts talking about his hobbies,
right?
Do you think he's handsome? Like that's the core. Like, would you kiss him?
Me? No.
Yeah, Catherine.
No,
it's Norman.
Too young for me. I can appreciate like he's cute, but like no.
Okay, Carolyn, would you kiss Norman Bates? Too young?
You're definitely too young for me. Come on now, who are we talking
How old do we
about?
think Norman is?
I mean, like too young for when? Like at the age he's playing that in the movie.
Is Norman like 30, something like that?
No, what's wrong?
No, I would have said he was younger.
No.
So his mom, we find out that mom died 10 years prior. So I just assumed that he would be like 20 or something like that. But I guess he could have been much younger. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just going by kind of how he was very boyish. He seemed.
Yeah, there's a little bit of an immaturity there, even though, like, certainly, like, look, handsome human being, attractive human being, not arguing that at all. That's just for my taste. I'm like, shy and weird and young doesn't do it for me.
No.
Well, that's the thing is like as soon as would probably have to keep him in a vacuum, right, Shrishma? Because as soon as you see him in motion or
like he kept
hear
his
him
mother.
speaking, like
I feel like just from like looks wise.
Yeah, right.
Not like
if you saw his profile online, like his Tinder
if Auntie
profile.
Seema came to me and was like, "Here," I'm like, "Yes."
And I'm like, what was his Tinder thing? Be like, yeah, I love stuffing things. Ha ha. Like,
my mom's my best friend.
Yeah,
exactly.
This is the thing. Okay, so Norman has himself a little date, right? Like poor Marion Crane. This is the worst place to stop, the worst person to get caught in a fucking sandwich meeting with. But I mean, she ends up. It's so interesting because. It's only when she hears, I think it's only when she hears his mom scolding him from the house, right? Like when she's, settling into her room and like that is enough to trigger enough sympathy for him that she's like, yeah, you know what? I'll eat your sandwiches in your presence or whatever. I mean, she kind of agreed to it beforehand, but now she feels even more like obligated to eat with him. Except he doesn't eat. And I don't know. But this is a very uncomfortable scene in his parlor, his office parlor, where he brings her food and she has to eat it out of politeness. And again, sympathy for his predicament of being a mama's boy, full on mama's boy, prototype mama's boy. And as soon as she starts eating, of course, he's going to comment on the way she eats. Everybody loves that. You eat like a bird. And this is, the bird imagery is very heavy. Yeah.
I mean, like clearly Alfred Hitchcock has a bird thing.
Yeah. Well, and I think we talked about this with the movie The Birds, but like, birds being slang, British slang for women. Her last name is Crane, which is a bird. He has taxidermied birds in his office. So obviously he's into stuffing birds.
Birds and peeping.
And and peeping as well. Now it's interesting. Have any of you seen the remake of Psycho, like the 1998 shot-for-shot Gus Van Sant remake, which was a thing?
Isn't that the one with Vince Vaughn?
Vince Vaughn plays Norman Bates.
No, but I remember that being out.
I saw it in the theater actually a couple times, I think, when it was out, and then I watched it again maybe in the past year or so. It's like it got made fun of for being like an exact recreation, but it's kind of interesting to see like in color with different performers and everything. I don't know. I think it's a worthy. It's not. I think it's still good.
It's good. Okay.
It's not like you'll never capture the original shock, I guess. Or maybe you could. I don't know. I guess you would have to show it to somebody who's never seen the original to see what they think of it, I suppose. But the thing that they do add is when Norman is peeping, they add the actual masturbation part. So like you get the Foley of him doing this while he's peeping into the other room, which is just implied in the original that this is.
So one of the things though that I did find creepy, okay, that's creepy. And I mean, I know that the book it's based off of and the film, when he was talking about all the taxidermied stuff, like talking about the birds. And I was like, oh yeah, Ed Gein, isn't this supposed to be like loosely based on Ed Gein, who like would make like exhume corpses and make lampshades out of skin? Then it's not funny, but
well, I mean, it's uncomfortable enough to where you have to laugh to make it comfortable,
right?
Is that
right? But that like.
Now?
Yeah, of course we are. But I
check out our new lampshades at the store, by the way. The old movie time store. It's available.
But I had that moment of like, oh wait, that's right. This was like a similar time period, and I thought I was pretty sure that the book was kind of like, you know, the same thing, like obsessed with their mother, and like the weird, like simple next door guy is really just like a complete murderous creep. So taxidermying things.
Right. He was always such a nice boy, so shy, very quiet, kept to himself.
Right.
I've never read this book. Actually, I think I would like to now.
I think I might like the book better than the movie.
Have you've read it?
No, I haven't, but I have a feeling I'll probably like the book better than the film.
Okay. How is this, Shrishma, as a first date for you? Where, okay, you have a meet cute, you know, like, oh, we're just two strangers brought together by fate in this rainstorm. And this is his access to a beautiful woman. She's literally just come to his door and like immediately he has no game. Like immediately he's talking about how she eats. He's talking about his taxidermy hobby. And then he gets into the mom stuff. I mean, it's like one hit after the other where it's like, dude, the
date's not going well.
Oh my God.
But it's also like one of my fear. It's not a fear, but it's this like being killed in like a abandoned hotel.
Yeah, I think that's a valid fear.
Because like, have you guys ever watched this movie Hostel?
Yes, I have.
Where they would go to like random places in like Europe and like get chopped up.
Right, and then they take you to this weird place filled with cells where they
Yes. So this is a general fear that I have. And so this movie didn't help. How did I like this date? I feel like after this date, I would have not wanted to smash as much.
That's a relief. Glad to hear it.
Stepping away from the smashing,
right?
Which is unfortunate because a son is no substitute for a lover,
right?
So
a son is a poor substitute for a lover.
Okay.
That, I mean, again, first date.
Okay.
It's just look.
Don't use that line in a first date.
Here's what I would do to coach Norman.
Why don't you go away?
If I was being brought in, if I was being helicoptered into like, coach. Yeah, right, as like a counselor for like, listen, there's somebody out there for you, Norman. We just got to find them. It's like, look, maybe a little less history, more mystery from you, and maybe you ask some more questions of her, like, what are you into? Because like, you can't lead with the taxidermy and the mom fan club. You just can't lead with that. You guys got to be anything else. Now, that being said,
maybe she liked taxidermy, but clearly she didn't. Everyone has their thing.
Everybody has their thing,
right.
But let's think back to a time before like goth culture and like this sort of weird, a little bit more esoteric underground. We collect bizarre, Victorian paraphernalia, things that belong in glass jars or whatever, which is very much a subsect of society at this point. I don't think in 1960 you had so much of that or if you did, maybe yes, then we're actually into the Ed Gein territory of, sir, should you be having all of these things kept in glass jars? Should you be having the cadaver of your mother preserved in a fruit cellar?
That's crazy.
It's just a question.
It's
kind of fucked up, right?
It is. Extremely.
How do we feel about the shower murder scene? This is included as part of the synopsis. I mean, this is a very, very famous scene in cinema. This is like the prototype example of fine editing or editing used for effect to sort of illustrate this type of violence without actually seeing the violence. We don't see the skin being pierced by the blade ever. We do see a lot of her body, though, like in quick flashes.
Feel like this was so voyeuristic, and also like every film student that got their hands on the actual reel of this film was just like, oh my God, side boob. Oh my God, a belly button.
Oh, right.
Like,
that's funny. Well, I mean, as one of the film students, that was not my immediate response. I mean, it's always nice to see a beautiful naked woman, of course, but it was more about like, I was interested in, well, there's two big mysteries. One is the shot of the shower head seen from her point of view, and like, how is it not getting wet? The answer to that mystery is that they just made a really huge shower head. And so like the camera could fit like in the middle and the water would go around it. A comically large shower head. Speaking of comically large things, this is actually a throwback to our Dial M for Murder episode where we see the finger dialing the M on the rotary phone. That's actually because they couldn't get that shot in focus. They had to build a very large rotary phone dial and an equally large fake finger. So that's a fake finger dialing M for Murder there. Likewise, it's just a fake big old shower head. So I don't know. Hitchcock, very inventive with, should have done like a shrinking person movie, maybe or like the Incredible 50-Foot Woman or something with size. He seemed to be very adept at that. Second weird thing is, how do you get the shot from the drain dissolving into the graphic match with her eye, and then like the spinning around camera movement as we pull away where she doesn't move or blink or whatever? That's impossible. That's an impossible shot. But she
does. There is a very faint movement there.
Yeah,
she does hold it. Yeah.
Yes, but it's as good as you could ask for a live person, and it's pretty shocking. But new people to Psycho, how did you feel about this murder? It's also complemented by the score, Bernard Herrmann's score, which shit, man, this score is a banger, right? Like this has got to be like top 5.
That's probably the most iconic part of it to me. Is like, as soon as I heard that sound, I knew I've heard this before. I know exactly what, like, I know
I was born.
So recognizable.
Tell me your thoughts.
You know, you had asked last week when you're like, you've never seen it, but why? You love all these other Hitchcock films. I was like, yeah, but the other ones have a lot of glamour. Like, this is so just like, meh. I did not find it suspenseful. Obviously, I also knew it was going to happen. And I felt like the first half hour, I was just like, no one gives a shit about this money. Get to the creep at the hotel.
Okay, I guess the experience is a bit compromised because you knew the exciting conclusion to Psycho.
Right, exactly. But then also like the murder scene, I realized I'm like, 21st century, late 20th century, early 21st century eyeballs and experiences. I'm like, man, it wasn't shocking. It wasn't bloody enough. I mean, my comment was truly, it's not enough blood in the drain if there's a stabbing.
That's true. She does allegedly get stabbed many times. We're led to believe that she's stabbed a whole lot. And it does seem to be like about like half a glass worth of very, very diluted,
watered
blood.
down.
Yeah, it's about 100 mils perhaps tops.
Yes.
But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I thought like the ordinariness of the first half an hour is obviously meant to lull you into some sort of sense of security if you think of audiences of the day.
And that it would go a different direction. Like this would have been a really big left turn. So, and I can understand cinematically why it's such a beloved film, because there are some really fascinating film tricks in there. about the shower head, about that shot on her face where her face doesn't move afterwards, like just hearing the sound of the stabbing, but you're not actually seeing the knife going. It's like, there's all those things where I'm like, yeah, I get why this is iconic. Absolutely. It's just, and I think maybe because I didn't grow up with it as part of my canon of Hitchcock films or things that I would watch. So I'm just kind of like, oh, like I don't enjoy. The other films, I'm like, oh my God, look at Grace Kelly, or look at that outfit, or Jimmy Stewart being Jimmy Stewart, whatever it might be. There's a different kind of 1950s charm.
Yes, I think,
and this is gritty. I'm like, and now we're in the 60s.
Exactly. This is really a real gateway film, I think.
Yes.
This became very clear to me watching it this last time, especially since we've just been watching so many of these from this era. Like, this is the beginning of, we're stripping all of that artifice away. Like, that we're stripping away the glamour and the banter. We're stripping away the fucking color. Like, the fact that he did this in black and white when everybody was transitioning to color. I mean, it creates a different viewing experience. Now, he'd obviously made plenty of black and white films earlier in his career, but we're so accustomed to seeing this era now done in color.
Yeah, it seemed like a budget film.
Right, which it was, as we talked about. Like, he needed to make this on the cheap because it was considered risky, I think, and also Vertigo was not the smash success I think everybody had hoped it would be. So, yeah, we're going to strip this down to stuff that we can do easily on a sound stage, black and white, real quick. Like, this is quick and dirty, small cast, and here it is. And also, I feel like as you say, Carolyn, the glamour has been kind of stripped away. I feel like performance-wise, even, these are much more naturalistic performances than we have become accustomed to from this older school of thought of that's more influenced by the stage and the transatlantic accent and all this, reaching the people in the cheap seats.
Yeah, and I would say transitional. Probably, I mean, obviously, like, film is a reflection of society. We're seeing the same transition in society. Like, our first baby boomers are coming into their late teenage years, and early adulthood at this time, 1960s. So, they are divesting themselves of their parents' morals, values, sense of style. The hat index is way down.
Yes, steps, absolutely.
Little to no hats in this.
Yeah, I think only Arbogast, maybe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But yes, and I think the cultural change hasn't happened, but you feel it like right around the corner. Yeah.
Right.
There's something, we've progressed to a point where we're waiting for the next thing is what this feels like. Now, maybe I'm saying that knowing that the next thing is around the corner, which is the mid 60s basically. And then into, up to 1980, basically.
We have a couple that's clearly in a sexual relationship, not married.
That's true.
Yeah. And they are sweaty and steamy in all the right ways.
There is a bare-chested man and a woman in a bra.
That's right.
Where I'm more like, I guess I just prefer that 1950s glamour.
I understand.
Keeping it buttoned up.
I like a little mystery. I'm good with that. I don't need to see it all, people.
You don't want to see Jimmy Stewart's bare chest?
No, or his bare feet in that goddamn Bell Book and Candle film. Take those bare Jimmy Stewart feet.
Falling. That does haunt me. The fact.
Put some slippers on, God damn it. Be a gentleman.
Guys, we're back here just breaking into our programming as we do because we want to focus on some of our hot merchandise in our steamy hot merchandise store. It's the TeePublic store. The link is in the show notes attached to this very episode. But let's look, it's Hitchcocktober. Let's talk about our Hitchcocktober design, which is the unique cover that we use for these episodes only. We've got some ravens on there. We've got, articles of death. We've got ropes. We've shallow graves. And really, you could put this on anything. We talked tank tops previously. We talked coffee mugs. We have these tapestries, though, these sort of large fabric, like flag-sized things. Like, what if we got that? You know, like, but the Hitchcocktober cover art, like that's available for you if you want to go check it out. So we advise you to do that, of course. I don't know, Shrishma, like, what would you put Hitchcocktober cover art on? A t-shirt?
I would use it as a blanket.
Oh, a blanket. I don't know if blanket's an option, but maybe these tapestries could double as a blanket, you know?
Like, and then, so when the trick-or-treaters come,
and it gets chilly outside, you can wrap yourself, swaddle yourself.
Or, you know, maybe share it with them. Because they're cold too, because they're outside.
Right. No, of course. I mean, it's a totally normal bit of behavior.
We can get some hoodies, and those could be our trick or treat.
Yeah. Why do we not have the Hitchcocktober hoodie? We do, actually. It's available on our TeePublic store. Catherine, would you be seen around town wearing one of those? I'm sure you would. Maybe not for you personally, but let's say you're a listener of our program. Would you be wearing one of those? The answer is yes. Carolyn Naoroz, what do you want to put Hitchcocktober cover art onto? Do you want to put it on like a notebook, spiral bound, maybe not spiral bound? The options are fairly limitless.
Coffee mug.
Coffee mug. You got it. You got it, sis. And you got it too, listener at home. And if you do buy at least 1 to 3 of each of these things that we've just talked about, we're going to thank you so fucking hard. It's going to sound just like this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could we get one with like Norman Bates, like, hey, boo?
Just says dream boyfriend as long as he doesn't talk or move.
Yeah, like I'd smash it, says Boo.
Yeah, smash worthy. Actually, we should do it. It should be a quote shirt for you. Of like,
stand there and look pretty.
This is how low the bar can be. Shrishma Naik. Okay, great. And now back to the show. Guys, for the sake of brevity, let me give you the next part we'll talk about here. Norman discovers the murder scene and quickly cleans it up. He puts the body and its effects, including the stolen $40,000, into the trunk of Marion's car and rolls it into a swamp.
Now that just seems stupid.
Meanwhile, Marion's sister Lila wants to know what it is. And she and Sam run into Mr. Arbogast, a PI who has been hired to recover the stolen cash. Arbogast goes door to door, finally ending up at Bates Motel, where he sees right through Norman's weird nonsense. Unfortunately, he is also killed by Mrs. Bates before anything can be resolved. Now, Carolyn, what was your issue with throwing away the $40,000, which is a mistake that he wasn't aware of?
I actually meant more like sinking cars, supposedly probably close to your property, and it doesn't even sink all the way.
I mean, it does eventually. It gets there.
I know. I'm just like,
moment, but I think it's a good idea. Like if I'm living back then, and I have access to a bog, I'm chucking my incriminating artifacts in there. What do you mean? Oh, you're not?
No, I am. But I'm just saying, like when you pick up that newspaper, you couldn't feel it was heavy.
He was in a panic. You know, it's a huge publication. There's a lot of news in LA. So yeah, I get what you're saying, that like you might be curious. He does grab it with like both hands. He doesn't even take a look at. He's just, I understand what you're saying.
Just physics, math.
Yeah, right. You would think his head might have been elsewhere.
That's true.
Might
have
been with his mom.
It's okay. I give it to him because he's cute.
So we're in a different movie at this point. All right, Shrishma, this is shock. I mean, I guess I shouldn't be that surprised, but I mean, I'm glad.
I have very low standards.
This is a hot snake for sure. This is the hottest of hot snakes. Shrishma Naik takes. Is that Norman Bates? She would.
I would.
All things being equal, she would.
We should do that poll every time. Would you smash?
I think we should. I mean,
smash or not?
I think we kind of have been, but I definitely think we should be talking about it more. Yes. Paula Prentice, yes,
smash.
Right. Faith, absolutely. We need to do like a ranking of hotties that we've discovered in these movies, because there have been some. Oh, come on, get out of here.
Number 1 hottie,
Rock Hudson.
Sure, I could see it. He's like 6'5", looks like Superman. Why wouldn't you? Right?
Done. Smash.
Carrie?
Yes.
Okay.
Although I can't remember his face now.
Oh, really? Cary Grant? Well, you do notoriously dislike that movie that we watched with him in it. We'll have to do a fresh Cary Grant for you, just so you can, just a refresher.
Maybe.
Jimmy Stewart?
Pass.
What about the English version, Ray Milland from Dial M for Murder?
I don't remember.
Okay. So a maybe.
Yeah.
All right.
Kanske.
Let's. Very good. Frau Bach. Let's talk about our guest, played by Martin Balsam, who we will later see in the made-for-TV movie Mitchell, starring Joe Don Baker. But he is a great character actor, this private investigator who's on the trail. And again, talking about like natural performances, like he's just a dude. It's not theatrical at all. It's just him talking. And I think he's great in this movie for bringing that element of reality and like seeing through the fucking nonsense. All these people with their schemes, Marion and her stealing the money, and Norman and his shitty motel. Like he's just like, I got all you guys. Like, been around the block, seen this before. I know what you're doing, and you don't fool me. So like, out with it. But what did you think, Shrishma, about Mr. Arbogast? How did you feel about his investigation?
I think for the time he was pretty thorough.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was getting paid, so maybe that was more motivated to get to the bottom of it.
You don't think her sister was motivated to get to the bottom of it because she's not on the payroll? She's motivated.
I mean, they both.
Her lover, he's motivated.
They both got to the same place.
Look, let's be real here. The sister and Sam, they would not have gotten to that place, but unless Martin Balsam's out knocking on doors, being like, "You seen this lady? People don't just disappear; they leave a trail." And he's all about it. So when he shows up at the Bates Motel and he has this run-in with Norman, I mean, again, this is an example of the movie, like with a very famous score, pointedly not using a score. It's just a conversation of people talking. And it's a mirror of Marion's meeting in the parlor with him for the first time. No music until we hear Mrs. Bates's voice. And that lack of music makes you want to focus more, I find anyway. Like this is the effect of this, is the absence of it actually creates a different effect that you can't get with it. But they're seen together when he's just kind of like probing Norman's weaknesses, like the weaknesses in his story, the gaps, the easy shit. And he's sort of like unraveling it and like, oh, so you did have somebody stay here last week. Oh, okay. See, this is why I ask. Like he's just playing this dude. And it's awesome. I found those scenes to be very gripping in how like normal and not movie-ish. It's not a movie scene. It's just it's like an actual thing happening. Is what I felt like. But I don't know. What did you guys think, Catherine?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was exceptionally well done. And poor old Norman just like drops his shit. Frankly. He
really gives it up really quickly. He doesn't like hold it even for a second.
This is like the first time anybody's come anywhere near to sniffing around at what he's up to, and he just it falls apart.
It's the first time that it's like his little boyish charm has not worked.
Right.
Which, and it did work. It works with like the locals, they all kind of know him and like his tragic history, the family, and like the sheriff. He can't, butter wouldn't melt in his mouth as far as they're all concerned.
He's just a sweet, simple boy. It's so
trying to make the best of like a really tragic situation. People
feel so bad for him. Yeah. Oh my goodness! But Arbogast, he's having none of it. He figures out that there's something up with this mom character as well, Mrs. Bates, and he
goes and investigates.
Yeah, he calls Lila and Sam, and he's like, "Look, I think I've got this figured out. Like, I met this really weird dude. He's the perfect example of a closet murderer if I've ever seen one, and I would know. And I even know what cabin, because like this dude's obsessed with changing the linens, but he's skipping a room. Is that not the secret horror of Psycho? Is like you've got the whole mom and the murder aspect and the split personality, but also just the very notion of musty sheets, musty motel sheets. Like that's
the worst, though.
Yeah. I mean, that it elicited such a sense memory of there's probably mold in cabin 3. Is he really changing them every week? And like, is once a week enough? He's got nothing but time. I don't know. The sheet question really got to me. But,
Although, to be fair, I was kind of applauding it a little bit because I just don't think these things get cleaned enough, frankly.
Probably not.
And I cannot bear. If I could, take a pillow with me everywhere I went, I would, because I just putting my head on something that countless other people have and sweated and dribbled into. And
I don't know what's stopping you, Catherine, because Carolyn will back this up. Our mother brought her pillow with her on every family vacation we ever went to. There was a special pillow scenario because she needed to have her pillow, and it makes total sense. Pillows are just face traps.
That's true.
I mean, you can change the sheet. It can be the cleanest sheet. If the pillow underneath is
mostly
skanky, then and they smell. I mean, I genuinely have to, if there's I don't know, 5 pillows in the room for whatever reason, I have to sniff them all and only go with the one that doesn't smell as bad. And I've been known in particularly awful places. I actually remember somewhere in America, some kind of, everything was plastic molded. It was just horrific. It was by a small airport somewhere. I can't remember where I was, but yes, it was a work thing. And everything stank. And I actually slept in my clothes, and I put my coat around the pillow because I just couldn't bear my skin anywhere near anything in that place.
I could not agree with you more. And I find your behavior, Catherine, to be totally normal. And I think
I feel like I need to go wash my pillows now.
Anyway, please do not reveal the exciting surprise ending to the Bates Motel linens. The real horror of Psycho. Are they musty? We'll never know, you guys, because Arbogast goes into this house. How do we feel about the actual Bates house once we see it? It's an iconic structure from the outside. They've rebuilt it, rebuilt the forced perspective facade for the studio tour at Universal Studios. So it's still out where it used to be. I think it burned down or something like that, the original one, but it's still out there. You can still see it. But the inside is mid-century grandma Gothic nightmare as far as I'm concerned. It's all that old stained hand-carved woodwork, right? As they would say in Ghost of Mr. Chicken.
Your uncle imported all that hand-carved work.
And a lot of, heavy carpets and heavy patterned wallpapers and just bric-a-brac. A lot of stuff in this house.
It all looks very beautifully maintained, though.
There's some nice Persian rugs.
That's true.
I mean, it doesn't look like this kind of it's not dirty. There's not piles of newspapers everywhere. It doesn't look creepy in a slightly abandoned way. Everything just is shiny, clean. He's clearly looking after it and polishing everything nicely once a week. It's
part of his preservation angle.
It does look like an old lady is maintaining it beautifully.
Oh yeah, and he's got nothing but time to rub lemon pledge into those fabulous old world banisters.
All that hand-carved work.
That's what he's into, and he's trying to maintain that house.
That's a murder house,
as the way he knew it when his mother was alive and life was normal, things were good, and it was just
happiest childhood ever.
He can't break away from it. But Arbogast, he goes to talk to Mom, and boy, he gets murdered in the process. And he falls down the stairs. Another famous, iconic shot of Martin Balsam's body, oddly tumbling down the stairs. We follow him. It's pretty crazy. Sam and Lila find Arbogast's absence alarming, and they visit the local sheriff, who tells them that Mrs. Bates actually died 10 years prior. Confused, Sam and Lila go to the motel themselves and start poking around in the most unsubtle way possible. Lila makes her way through the Bates house, discovers the desiccated remains of Mrs. Bates fully taxidermied in the fruit cellar. Sam stops Norman, who is now dressed as his mother, from stabbing her to death, and a psychiatrist arrives at the station in time to soliloquize the explanation of Norman's psychosis and fractured personality. Everyone loses pretty hard, and we finish on the bleakest note possible. The end. So
that's really how it ends.
Yeah. So again, classic movies of this era, like once the story is done, we're done. There are no
closure.
I mean, we didn't talk about it at the beginning, but there are actually opening credits. This is sort of, again, a very famous, I think, Saul Bass title sequence. It just opens with the words Alfred Hitchcock. Like it's just his name is the first thing that you see, and then it's Psycho.
Just going back to the credits there, I really did enjoy graphically the way they were done.
Yeah, fantastic. And again, another thing that is recreated for the remake, and the color certainly adds another layer to it. But yeah, the sort of, I especially appreciated like the cut and paste aspect of the word psycho, kind of like bouncing around, that type of animation. Yeah. But yes, so no end credits needed other than the end as we see the bog car being pulled out. But anyway, leading up to all of this, like we get the Bobbsey twins here on their little adventure, like poking around, and they're so obvious about it. It does reads to me, I don't know about you guys, but Norman knows that they know almost. Right. Like he's 95% certain they're like, oh, you must be here looking for the woman I just killed, right, and the other man I just killed. When they say they want to check in, he's like, oh, do you? Okay, sure, let's write.
But I think they also somehow working like he's killed 2 other women in the past.
Yes, we find out.
So it's like, I guess, some kind of serial killer situation happening.
Yeah, and that explains his bizarre behavior when he's going to change the linens and he skips that first room. He acts weirdly, or like something about that room before he kills Marion, where she invites him in for the food and he doesn't want to go in there. Right. So we find out later about the 2 other young women who were missing. He presumably killed. Like that's his spot where he does it. It's his special place where he goes and becomes mom and kills these women, apparently.
Right.
Did anyone clock how the sheriff said the name of the private investigator? Arbogast.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, it was a very weird, like, I was like, wow, that was phonetic.
Yeah.
The sheriff's wife, by the way, we've seen her before. She runs the boarding house that Luther Heggs lives at in the Ghost of Mr. Chicken. It's a very ghost. All roads lead back to Ghost of Mr. Chicken at a certain point. But she's the one who, hi, Luther. And she's very nice, makes a nice breakfast, as we saw Luther and Ollie eating in that movie. But anyway, back to this bizarre standoff between Sam and Norman in the office while she's poking around Lila. He's just thrown it in Norman's face. So you're kind of weird, right? Like weird in a I want to murder my girlfriend kind of way. Like he just, I mean, you probably need some money to get to build a new motel, right? And you could start a new, as it kind of clearly sucks out here. If this was a normal interaction between 2 people, I don't know if Norman reads as the psycho in this scene, is what I'm saying. It's just very intense, and Norman is dealing with it the best he can. But he's kind of slow on the uptake of like, oh, where's your partner? Like, where is? Right. And I'm trying to.
Yeah, he was very slow. Yeah.
Yeah. So enough time given, so Norman can, of course, slip into his muumuu and his wig and become Mrs. Bates and murder Lila down in the fruit cellar as she discovers Mrs. Bates. But alas, as we find out, he's not successful. He is caught. Sam is, again, we saw all those muscles. Like he's able to control reedy Norman Bates, and we take him back to the police station. And this is where we get the big explanation. Right. It's kind of a crazy scene where it's like, okay, we've had this movie for 90 plus minutes. Can one of us characters please explain it to the rest of us and the audience? Yeah. Like, what is going on?
That was so obviously what's going on. Like, oh, hey, if you've sat this long, let me explain this to you.
Yeah, you probably have some questions at this point in 1960 when you see the man, fracturing into his mother's personality. And that's what we learn is that he, in his mind, he adopts her personality and starts conversing with himself using her as the channel. And so anytime he has sexual feelings, we learned that this is all very sexually motivated, sexual impulses directed towards another woman. The mom part of his brain takes over and freaks out. But
it must have also been like the first time where they've like portrayed like this multiple personality.
If it's not the first time, it's the first time that it's done in a movie of this caliber or like this type of storytelling, to where if you took this out of Hitchcock's hands, say, and again, we're not going to focus on what a great guy this guy was, because he clearly wasn't, but he was a very skilled filmmaker. So if we're going to put it into the hands of somebody less skilled, this is a goofy movie. Like this, I think this is probably like a bad movie, like because it would just be so difficult to handle all of the more bizarre elements in a way where you're not like laughing at it. And the fact that we're not really laughing at it, I mean, maybe through modernized, but
I guess
for the most part,
yeah.
But you also knew the ending, Carolyn. Like,
yeah.
So I saw this movie for the first time, I think I was 17, and I did not know the exciting conclusion to Psycho.
Okay.
But even at 17, jaded, cynical 17, where you don't like much of anything, like, oh, that's fucking great. This is a great movie. I get it. This is a great movie. Like, it worked for me in a way. That's why, like, I wanted to be very sure that you had seen it on your own terms, right? Yeah. So it's a little talky, this final explanation, but they do lay it out in pretty clear terms, like what happened and how it happened.
Yeah, it covers a lot of ground. I mean, I even thought, that the description of the transvestite, the cop going, oh, he was a transvestite, he was just a woman.
Yeah.
And then that clarification of the difference between what's happening there.
It was a very mature clarification for something that could be played for laughs or for, like, what a weirdo in 1960, the cross-dressing, that would be something that is not mainstreamed yet, like Ed Wood famously talks about this in the 50s in Glen or Glenda, but for the most part, for a major motion picture event, we're not talking about any of this stuff in the same way. Now there's fringe films and art films being made around this time that are more, I think this movie kind of reflects them, Cassavetes films and, this quest for more realism and less of the artifice and facade of performative 1950s stuff that Carolyn is really into. But we're trying to get more real here in 1960s. The 60s, you guys.
That's not why I'm going to the movie theater.
I get it. We want to look at Grace Kelly's big, beautiful face and the big screen. I know. I'm with you. Stone Cold Hottie.
Yeah.
But, this is the end of Psycho. Do we have any final closing thoughts before we do our song and dance? Do the business?
Yeah, I don't know about the scene with him in the cell when he's on his own.
Ah, yes.
And he's asked for a blanket. He's having that little conversation in his head as his mother, in his mother's voice.
Yes. Now, did you guys notice the slight superimposition of the skull? Mm-hmm. Like his mom's desiccated head basically just slightly fades in right as we transition out of the scene over his face. It's really creepy, very effective. It's one of the, again, with the shower sequence, it's the other scary, traditionally scary scene that we see where it's like, oh my God, is that a skull? I'm like, ugh. But yes, that scene is pretty impressive for Anthony Perkins, I would say, handling all of this again in a way that could be seen as comical in the wrong hands, but he makes you buy it. He's a weird, off-putting character.
He did a really good job acting
and
playing this character.
Yeah. So
the thing with the fly. Oh, I wouldn't look that up.
Oh yeah.
She wouldn't hurt a fly.
He is in his head, you guys, or he's in somebody's head.
Oh, he's up in his gourd.
I don't want to use the P word because it might be insensitive, but I feel like this guy might be a little psycho. Dun, dun, dun,
I'm sorry. Was that a sea lion?
Yeah, it did sound like a sea lion. The scary, scary sea lion.
That's right. That's in my remake. We're doing the nautical version.
Okay, I'm just going to throw you a fish to distract you then.
And I'll do my little slappy the fins thing, and then I'll balance a beach ball on my nose, and then we'll call it a day. All right, you guys. 1960, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, based on somebody's book. We probably should have that author's name. They belong in there as well. Written by John Psycho, we'll say. Shrishma Naik. The key issue at hand. Do we keep watching this thing?
Yes. But one of the fundamental issues that I'm having with Alfred Hitchcock's movies is
so
like
pervy.
Yes, they're so pervy that you actually have to dissociate the fact that it was like a well-made movie with the subject matter. And if you're able to do that and just appreciate it for the filmmaking, then yes.
Mm-hmm.
But last time I didn't watch the ending of which one was it?
Vertigo.
Vertigo. And I went back and watched it. Yes. So there again, like I'm so between the subject matter and the filmmaking. Like it was a great movie. I liked the ending. I thought it was a pretty good twist. But like the whole concept of the movie really pissed me off.
Just what, a man changing a woman to fit the mold of what
and
he
then
wants?
like there was no consequence for the man who actually set the whole thing up.
Well, he doesn't get his girlfriend, does he?
I mean, he
poor guy.
Okay. I don't know. Like, so I'm just so but I like Psycho.
Carolyn Naoroz, 1960s Alfred Hitchcock's Janet Leigh's Psycho. Do we keep watching this thing?
Yeah, I mean, I personally might never watch it again because I did not ever feel compelled to watch it. I was totally bored watching it, but I understand why we should keep it from a film perspective and a turning point in American culture. That's fine. We can keep it.
Okay, fair enough. And of course, Katherine Sherlock. 1960 Psycho, brought to you by Alfred Hitchcock and his weirdness. Do we keep watching this thing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is iconic on so many levels. It went on to inspire probably a lot of the weird man.
That's the thing, though.
What's the thing?
But I mean, not all of it is. I don't know.
Like you shouldn't be inspired by some of this stuff.
No.
Like that's where like you draw the line between the filmmaking and the content of what.
Yeah, nobody's saying the content is like.
Well, you don't know that.
We should know
that. What's happening on like Netflix? I mean, how many like true crime series are there out there?
I'm sorry, Mike.
Murphy has something to say.
Carolyn, you're kind of coming in and out, so if you could just say that last part again, please.
Sorry that you've woken up the Gorgons.
We're almost done, dogs. You're doing great. Catherine, I'm in total agreement with you. I think this movie is iconic in all the ways. Now, look, the content it's fucked up, but it's supposed to be fucked up.
Because people are fucked up.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Nobody's watching Barbarian and being, oh yeah, well, this is how you should take advantage of a verbo opportunity.
People are also fascinated with the macabre and with things that scare them so that they can be like, whoo, okay, I'm not crazy like that.
Well, okay, great point. So did any part of this movie scare you guys?
No, not at this age, but clearly as a child it scared me.
The scariest part is when she gets busted by her boss leaving town, like as an adult. The naughtiness of getting your hands caught in the
there was some tension.
Yeah.
And I think, I was genuine. I don't know. I think I was, I didn't expect the opening scene with the sexiness. I mean, that's not scary, shocking, but it was.
As a woman, yeah, I agree. Like as a kid, there's the shower scene. As an adult, you're like, oh my God, if I committed a crime at work, white collar crime, people, embezzlement. I think as a woman, I found the scene when he's watching her eat, and I would have been like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" That's creepy.
Norman Bates is a walking red flag.
There is so many ways
outside of like you say, like the headshot of just human man. Like anything else any insight we get into him is upsetting. I don't want any more of it. It's too much. But we got to keep watching this. I don't know. This movie holds up. I look forward to watching this movie. It's also an incredibly economical bit of storytelling. Like it's less than 2 hours, almost 2 movies worth of movie here. And there's not a lot of fat that you could cut. It's pretty tight.
It is tight.
I think it reads as a fairly modern film compared to a lot of the stuff that we've watched for this program recently. So There you go. Let's wrap it up with some artifacts for our fabulous Museum of Mid-Century Life. We call it the Boom Room. It's over on our Patreon page, which for $2 you can go get our first 50 episodes. Twice as long they are. The double length ad-free episodes. Go get them and let us know that you care, you guys. But Shrishma Naik, what would you like to take from 1960s Psycho and put into our fabulous Museum of Mid-Century Life?
I would like to take the owl that he taxidermied.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Just to support Norman's
hobby.
Yeah,
okay. I appreciate the fact that you want to support Norman and some of his
I just said maybe if he had if he had a different childhood or someone loved him more, maybe he might have turned out different.
He might have been more normal.
So you think it's
Norman and normal, like that's on purpose. Bates is on purpose too. He's the master of the house. He's Master Bates. And he's finally Trish was like, oh. But all that stuff's on purpose. But we'll give that credit to the author, whatever their name may be. Okay. Owl, stuffed owl. You got it. Carolyn, what do you want to put in the Boom Room?
I'm going to take one of the Persian rugs from Mom's house.
Sure. Well maintained.
I mean, it looks like Norman took really good care of that house, and they look like they probably wouldn't have seen a lot of sunlight, so therefore
he takes
they're
those
not
rugs out and he beats them. He's got carpet beaters. He's that type of guy. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, you can get a pretty penny for that on eBay when the Boom Room eventually closes, as it will.
Yes.
Katherine Sherlock, what would you like to put into our fabulous museum?
Well, I also was going to go for the angry owl.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm having to think. Something is coming to mind.
Do you want that great clear shower curtain?
Nah.
$40,000.
Maybe the sign, the Bates Motel sign.
Oh, that's
yeah.
Really should have just been turned off, frankly, and then that would happen.
Kevin's fixated on the business model of the signage. Yeah,
I mean, clearly he's uninterested in actually being a host.
Well, no, he had kind of like quenched his thirst for murder for the time being, and whenever he starts feeling the itch, like he just flips that sign back on, I guess. Must be nice to, I mean, presumably they own that place outright. I mean, like he's making $10 per stay, one stay every 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, I don't know what the math on that looks like, but probably can't support a big old gingerbread house, I would imagine. But yes, always love a good piece of neon. Catherine, you got it. Bates Motel sign.
This is it. It draws those moths to the flame.
That's right. And we need to draw those patrons to our museum. So let's use that. I've got a tie over here. I mean, I know which one I'll take, but like one of the things that did stand out, Norman's copy of Beethoven's Third Symphony on LP, which he has. We see when they're exploring the house and they go to his bedroom and he has Eroica, which is my favorite Beethoven symphony. But I'm not sure why that was chosen. I couldn't tell you what the subtext is, because that's presumably about a young Napoleon Bonaparte. But anyway, that's interesting, and just like, oh yeah, I'll have that. That's a great piece of music. But I will take for real the Clipper ship end table lamp that is found in all of the rooms at the Bates Motel. We see it pretty prominently when Marion is settling in and like unpacking her suitcase and all this, but it's just a nice lampshade with a big old Clipper ship, nautical themed lamps. Why not? And that'll do it. That's a wrap for 1960s Psycho. We did it. Congratulations, you guys, on experiencing one of the great films, I would say. Thank you.
Ooh.
On behalf of the movie. Thank you. Let's talk next week. We're going to have a special Tuesday release because it will be Halloween.
Halloweeny.
So that being said, we talked about this last week, if I'm not mistaken. We are going to be watching a personal fave. We're breaking another rule. We did black and white today. Our first black movie. You're still alive, still breathing, Shrishma. You're yawning, but you're alive. I appreciate that. We're going to do a film that's slightly out of our time window. It was actually filmed in early 1966. But I mean, still, it's close enough, right? We get the vibe, okay? So we are going to be watching 1966's Munster Go Home. That's right. We've talked an awful lot about the television show The Munsters. Well, there was a feature film made. Munsters was in black and white, famously. The movie, wide awake color. Let me give you the logline.
Is this
here.
like the Wednesday Family?
It's similar. So we'll probably talk about this next week, I would imagine. But like at the time, the Addams Family was on one channel, one network, and on the other network they with the Munsters.
Uh-huh.
And you're going to have questions about the Munsters and how that family came together and how it works and everything. But for right now, all you need to know is that Herman, Lily, Grandpa, and their ghoulish clan relocate overseas when Herman inherits his uncle's English estate. However, they discover a group of criminals is occupying their new home. So, Catherine, you're going to feel pangs of homesickness next week. I'm so sorry because we're going to be seeing LA backlot of a UK manor home. So you can bask in all of that, all of your homeland's glory as imitated by Hollywood. So that's next week, you guys. Munster Go Home. We'll celebrate the end of spooky season. And until then, you guys, thank you so much for being here. And we will see you next time. Please never forget that this has been Old Movie Time Machine.